Hello again. Today I want to take a few minutes to talk about facing the storms of life. You know, Jesus said that we all would face storms of life. Life is not easy. It's not if, but when these struggles come. But you know what I was thinking about fear? You know, we have to have faith. And even though we'll still have fear, if our faith is bigger than our fear, then we can answer the door with faith when fear comes knocking. But also I thought about laughter. And laughter and fear have a hard time living together. So I think it's okay if we laugh together. So I wanted to just start out with just a couple little funny jokes that I've heard. Michael Jr. is a very, very good comedian. If you get a chance, look him up on YouTube. He does a good job. But he was talking about growing up and going to a funeral. And of course, you see the casket at the front of the church, and him being a little boy, he's taking it all in. And he hears this woman say, "Oh, she's in a better place." He's thinking, she's in a box. Where was she before? One year for Christmas, a little boy gets this box. He opens it up, nothing in it. His dad said, "Oh, it's your favorite toy. It's an invisible man." He played with that toy every day until one day he lost it. Couldn't find it. Still looking for it, by the way. You ever drink 2% milk and then think, wonder what the other 98% is? Makes you think, doesn't it? And then finally, you know, the commercial with the lady, she's laying on the floor and she goes, "I've fallen and I can't get up." Well, there's a cameraman there taking her picture. You would think he would drop the camera and help her up. But we don't see that, do we? I was reading in Psalms chapter 7, verses 10 through 17, and David is talking about taking up the shield of faith. So there's that word faith again. He says, "My shield is God Most High. I will give thanks to the Lord because of his righteousness and will sing praise to the name of the Lord Most High." Verses 10 and 17. In between those verses 10 and 17, he warns us if we fall into the temptation and start to enjoy it and nurture it, he warns, "Whoever is pregnant with evil and conceive trouble will give birth to the disillusionment." Verse 14. In another image, he likens it to digging a hole, scooping it out, and then falling into the pit we have made. If you go over to Ephesians 6:16, Apostle Paul talks about the shield. He says, "You're to take up a shield with which you can extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one." Shield of faith. As David puts here, his shield is God Most High. So something to think about there. So I want to go over into Matthew chapters 8, starting at verse 23 and going through chapter 9, a few verses. It starts out with the story about Jesus being in the boat with his disciples. And when you read this, you'll find out that Jesus is doing what? Sleeping? Do we sometimes think that today, that, hey, Jesus, are you sleeping, not hearing what's going on around us? Do something, right? Well, in this case, a furious storm came up, and even though there were normally storms that would pop up on the Sea of Galilee, this one must have really been particularly serious. So one, where the disciples go running to Jesus and say in verse 25 of chapter 8, "We're going to drown. Do something," right? So I guess their natural response at this point, even though that they had been with Jesus, they panicked. So, when it doesn't seem like he's doing anything about our problems, thankfully, we can cry out to him, and he does hear us. But we shouldn't be afraid. He says, "You of little faith," there in the first part of 26, because we know that Jesus is quite capable, as the disciples knew that he was quite capable of calming that storm. And that's exactly what he did. Trust God and fear not. You know, he's in our boat, just like we're in the boat with others. The disciples were there together and had Jesus in the boat. So sometimes I think he calms the storm, but if he doesn't, he calms us to get through the storm. Important thing to remember there. He goes on to talk about healing and forgiveness when he heals the paralyzed man there in the start of chapter 9. And then the passage ends with him going to dinner at the house of Matthew, who was a despised tax collector. Can you imagine the Pharisees and what they were thinking of, like, where's Jesus going? Hanging out with the crooks and riffraff? But Jesus overheard that, and he answers back in verses 12 and 13 like this. He said, "Who needs a doctor, the healthy or sick? I'm after mercy, not religion. I'm here to invite outsiders, not to coddle the insiders." So God's mercy is his kindness and forgiveness towards people that don't deserve it. Thank God that he's that way with all of our flaws and imperfections. He still loves us, still forgives us, still shows mercy. All we have to do is be obedient, show faith, and trust, and he will provide. I hope you guys have a great day, and subscribe to my channel. There'll be more to come. Thanks. Have a blessed day.